were oftentimes more grand and magnificent. However, despite their beautiful exteriors, actually living in them wasn't as luxurious as one might think. Hey Wanderers! Welcome back to another Foolish Wanderers podcast, the podcast about anything and everything. Today we're going to be talking about what it's really like living in medieval castles. But first, we're going to talk about a feud between Jack Daniels and a dog toy.
Yeah, so this Jack Daniels tiff with a dog toy company is going to the Supreme Court.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Why? What laws did they break?
So, so Jack Daniels, this is so Jack Daniels is asking the Supreme Court to hear a trademark case involving a dog chew toy that parodies the bottle that their signature Jack Daniels bottle.
Oh, like their bottle is actually trademarked?
Yeah, so like their design is, but as you
Mm.
can see, I did this on accident. I bought this like basic white girl Coachella t-shirt that looks like the Jack Daniels logo. Can you see?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah, I
The
don't know
purple.
why I bought it. I think because I took my younger cousin's school clothes shopping, and the longer I stand in a store, the more likely I will spend money. And
That's how
this
it
is
works,
what
yeah.
I decided to buy.
Well, I mean, you liked Jack Daniels and stuff in college, right? So, I mean, that's
Yeah,
probably why you were
I
drawn to
think I
it.
was in high school when I bought this, though. I don't really remember.
Oh,
But
yeah.
anyway, this is my painting shirt and sweating shirt, and like, I wear it at home because I'm too embarrassed. But anyways, so my point being is that you can get away with it, right?
I
The
think
Jack
so.
Daniels make look alike. Like I've seen it hundreds of times over. I've even seen dog toys, not this exact toy, but a different dog
Mhm.
toy that look like Jack Daniels.
Sure, yeah.
And even Inca has one that's a parody off of the company Maker's Mark. She
Oh,
has
sure.
one that says Barker's Mark or something.
Mhm. I think I've seen that one,
Yep,
yeah.
it's really cute. So anyway, I just thought that the story was really weird and funny.
It's it's just interesting that this is the one specific brand that or toy that they're going after,
Yeah, so
since there's
Jack
so many.
Yep. So Jack Daniels is going after the maker of a dog chew toy for infringing on the whiskey company's trademark. So at issue is VIP's products squeaky tongue-in-cheek copy of the famous whiskey maker's bottle called Bad Spaniels, which sells for $16.49 and says in small print that it's 43% poo by volume and 100% smelly. So I think that's where Jack Daniels has an issue.
Sure, because it's, like, kinda gross and
Crass. It's
yeah,
kind of
that's a
like
better word,
bringing
yeah.
like their brand down, I'd say. That's what I kind of
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, because other ones are cute. Like, I just looked them
Yep.
up, and there's one that says "Wet Nose and Bones" instead of Jack Daniels, or
Mhm.
yeah, there's, like, cute ones, but yeah, that one's pushing it a little bit.
That one's kind of crass. I think it's funny, but like it's crass.
Mhm.
The rough replica is part of VIP's product line of silly squeakers, which also poke fun at other alcohol companies, including Stella Artois, which
Oh.
is the beer Stella Artois,
Mhm.
and Heine Sniffin, which shows a dog sniffing another dog's butt, and it's supposed to mimic Heineken's beer bottle.
Oh,
That's funny.
that one's
Heine
funny.
Sniffin, because Heineken does kind of yeah, it does sound like that. So
Mhm.
after the company began selling its Bad Spaniels toy in 2014, Jack Daniels told the company to stop, but VIP went to court to be allowed to sell its product. Jack Daniels won the first round in court but lost an appeal. The case reached the Supreme Court last year, but the justices didn't bite. Notice all these puns, these dog puns?
Yeah, I could yeah.
Okay, so however, on Monday the justices took up the appeal. So that means they're going to look at it. So VIP claims that Jack Daniels owner Louisville, Kentucky-based Brown Forman Company has waged war against the company and can't take a joke, the company wrote. So Jack Daniels is basically saying that that this company is being taken advantage, or no, that they're taking advantage of Jack Daniels' hard-earned goodwill. So yeah, so like like, not defaming, but like bringing down their brand.
Yeah, and I can see that when it's like when it's fun and cute, it's, it brings more attention to your actual brand, but when
Mhm.
they put like you said crass words and stuff on it, it's yeah, not as yeah, not as welcomes, I guess.
So we will see what happens. Who will win? I kind of want to buy one for Inca just to help this company from Arizona pay its bills.
Yeah.
What, you're not a fan? You're just
I don't know. I guess like I don't know like what side to be on because I can see where Daniels is coming from because it's like it's their brand. I think they want to keep it classy,
But I
but
mean, Katrina, they're letting
I
like
know there's a lot of
trashy white girls run around in a Coachella, California
yeah,
knockoff looking,
that's true. Yeah,
parody of their. So I mean,
that's true. Yeah, if you go after one, you kind of have to go after
all of
all of
them.
them.
All
Yeah,
of them. That
yeah.
means, all these country music festivals, if you've ever gone to like a country music concert or whatever,
Hmm.
there'll be stands filled with, just give me like I can't even think of a country name off the top of my head. They're all so boring. It's like, let's see. I can't think of one.
A country
Depression.
artist,
Yeah.
Blake Shelton,
Yeah, I'm sure they sell Blake Shelton, looking Jack Daniels merch, with
probably.
his
Yeah.
name on there. Or why? Okay, offshoot. Why are country music artists like names so boring?
I suppose so they're approachable. You mean like compared to like rock artists or pop
Yeah,
artists?
any other
I think it's a
genre.
I think it's a branding thing because like country music is more down home, more approachable, laid back compared to like a rock artist or like a pop artist especially. Like Pink,
Lady
she's very
Gaga,
yeah, Lady Gaga. Like they're very like their musical style is a lot more out
Adele.
there. Yeah, like they're much more flashy, I guess. So their names kind of emulate that as well.
I mean, I guess you're probably right. Like, I don't know how I'd feel about a country artist with the name like BB Rexa. I'd be like, what?
Yeah. Although that one kind of fits, but I don't know. Yeah, it's just a genre thing.
It's just their name. It's just like, I can't even think of a like
Ugh.
a generic man's name.
Bill,
Eh,
but not generic enough. Ray.
Dakota Smith.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good
Hmm.
one.
Jake O'Reilly.
Eh,
It's Jake O'Reilly singing "Kissin' Catfish." Like that could be a song. Like if
could
somebody
be.
put that up, with like a nice like graphic design, like fake cover art thing,
Hmm.
Jake O'Reilly singing "Kissin' Catfish," I'd be like, yeah, that's probably like a top 10 hit, right?
Probably.
Mhm.
Well, going back to the dog toy thing, I when I was googling about the dog toys, I found a Fireball knockoff chew toy that's called Fluff Ball, and there's a dog on it that looks like Inca.
Just send it to me.
Yeah, I did. It's so cute. It's on Chewy.com. It's
Oh, it
so
looks
cute.
like Binky.
Yeah.
And right next to it is a Jack Daniels knockoff.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of Jack Daniels.
See?
That's what I googled though. So the
Oh,
Fireball
okay.
whiskey just
Okay.
came up random.
But I mean, like if you're gonna go after this,
Yeah, you
you
gotta
gotta
go
go
after
after
them
them
all.
all.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta catch them all.
Pokemon.
You know?
Okay, should we go
That's a
to
wrap.
castles now?
Yeah, that's a wrap. I need a director's board. That's a wrap.
Yeah, we need like a clacker or whatever it
Mhm.
was called.
Sorry to any country fans if that I offended.
Alrighty. So kind of like I mentioned in the intro, European castles often so we're gonna stick to more European castles. So split
Chateaus.
into chateaus, yes.
I'd
So
rather live in a chateau.
okay. So that's like a smaller version, right?
It's fancier, but yeah.
Fancier.
It's
Okay.
yeah, it's more modern,
Okay. Yeah.
fancier.
Fancy.
Actually has mirrors made of not mirrors, but
Mm.
windows made of glass instead of like
Yeah.
little sad, depressing little holes
Yep.
in the.
We're gonna talk about this.
All right. I was
Yeah.
like, when you said this, so you would
Yeah.
like to. So when you said the title of this episode is going to be, so you want to live in a castle, I
Mhm.
immediately said, hell no.
See, like, that's the thing when,
Hell
like, when
no.
you're a kid, like, for me, like, I always imagined as a kid, w like, walking around in a castle. Because one of my favorite movies was Princess Diaries with Anne Hathaway. They're
Oh,
making a
such a
3rd one, and that's confirmed now, and I'm excited.
tell 'em son, but the first 2 were so good.
They're so good. But,
Did
yeah,
Whitney Houston produce the first one?
she might have, I
I
don't
think
know.
she did,
She
and no
might
one,
have.
like, knew until recently after she died or something, I don't know.
Oh, want me to look it up?
Yeah, look it up quick. Prove me right. I think she did. She also, I think, did maybe, like, executive producing or producing for The Prince of Egypt.
Hmm,
Have you seen that movie? It's animated, it's
I don't think
about,
so.
it's like about, like, Moses.
Yep, Whitney Houston was one of them. Yeah. Yep. That's pretty cool. So, yeah, growing up, again, like, wanting to live in a castle like they lived in Genovia, made up country, I'm pretty sure. But it was like it was super beautiful and just elegant and classy. But real life medieval castles, especially, were nothing like that. And even like Renaissance era, they were filthy and just way too crowded. And we'll get
Diseased.
into this.
Cold.
Yes, a
Wet.
lot. Yeah, dark. Not necessarily the place you would really want to live, which is surprising
See,
nowadays.
being a little history nerd, I remember getting a book from the library that was those like cool I don't know who they were by, but they were those like educational books where they would cut things in half.
Oh, so you could see like a cross section of the castle and stuff.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
yes, and they were cross section of the castle, I remember, and
Mhm.
it was like eye opening. I remember being heck no back then. So that kind of ruined castles for me.
See, that's impressive though, because you already knew kinda, like, as a kid that
Well,
the
it
what it was
had,
really
like,
like.
all the cool, like, little job descriptions, like,
Mhm.
pointing to you, like, each job in, like, the little mural of the picture,
Sure. Yeah.
so
Mhm. So, when you think about who lived in a castle, the first people that probably pops into your mind would be king and queen, right? Like, those are the most famous the people that lived in an actual castle, and that's very true,
mhm.
but they're definitely not the only ones. So most castles were actually built for noblemen and women, or lords and ladies.
Landowners.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
So, in the days when it was still customary for a king to lead his troops into battle, the king rewarded an especially brave or courageous soldier or knight the best way that a king could in the back in those days. He gave the knight with the most courage a fat chunk of land. So, once a deserving warrior had been given his plot of land, he was allowed to do with basically what he wanted to do with it. Do whatever. The less ambitious nobleman, since a knight was made an earl or a baron after his services to the king, might build a manor house, just like a smaller house. But those who desired to build a castle had to get written and signed permission from the king. So it was actually illegal to build a castle without the king's permission.
What would happen? Like, would he throw you in your own dungeon? Would they knock the castle down, or would they just give it to somebody else?
I'm sure they'd probably just take the land away from you and
Mhm.
just. I don't know for sure, but I'm sure they'd just strip it away from you.
And, like, I was thinking when you're going back to how you got a castle, and you said they was given to, like, the knight with the most bravery or whatever in some
Mhm,
cases, I'm
mhm.
sure it was just from, like, the spoils of war. Like, they were like,
That's
"We
true.
fought them, and now you get their castle."
That could be too, yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was mostly land, but yeah, then I'm sure they could take
I've
whatever
seen
they
it in
wanted.
movies.
Because movies are always factual, yeah. But yeah, I'm
More
sure that
factual
happened
than
too.
The Princess Diaries,
That's true.
Katrina. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So moving on. So since there were more noblemen and knights than kings, it was quite easy to see why the main occupants of a castle were not members of a royal family, but more likely the members of a noble family, comprising of the lord, his lady, and many children or relations, along with all their servants and any close friends and colleagues. So there's a bunch of people living in this castle together, potentially. Alright, so even when the castle was not under attack, it was still very hectic, noisy, smelly, and often packed full of people. In short, a castle was not the most comfortable place to live in, even if said castle was built primarily as a home instead of a defensive structure. So castles were large, dark, and cold. Most medieval castles were made of stone, and although stone was a perfect material for defense, medieval building structures were very basic, and this meant that most of the structures could only support tiny windows with wooden shutters, or if the noblemen could afford it, lead like glass panes or like stained glass windows. which resulted in very dark rooms that were constantly cold, as the thick stone could never actually be fully warmed by the sun.
Mhm.
And then the glass was expensive back in the medieval period, so most castles went without glass windows. And then if it got super cold, like wintertime, they had like these wooden shutters to block it up. Still cold though. So late medieval developments in architecture and Gothic castle design did improve on these problems, and castles built in the late 1200s began to have larger windows and lighter rooms. So about 1,000 years later, they started to get lighter and a little bit less dreary inside. Surprisingly, fireplaces weren't invented until the middle of the medieval period, around 1000 AD. So until this time,
I did not know that.
it's pretty cool.
What?
Yeah.
What are
So
they doing? Just putting, like, hot coals on the floor? Like, dumping them out?
no, well, kind of. So until this time, all the fires were open fires, which didn't spread heat effectively and generated a lot of smoke.
Oh
So actually,
gosh.
like in the center of like a room, they would have a giant or like a fire pit basically, and
Mhm.
that's where they would cook. Like in one room houses or whatever, they would have a fire, just like an open fire pit, cook, clean, keep everything warm, kind of, or tried to. And then again, like the smoke would accumulate and be very smoky, and you had to deal with that too. So the invention of the fireplace made rooms warmer, as it heated the stones as well as the chamber itself. So this made life in medieval castles much more bearable.
But not that much, because you're still, like, really,
No,
really cold.
it is, yeah. It's like, yeah, it helped warm up the stones a little bit more, but yeah, it wouldn't make it like our heating today by a long shot. So most rooms after their invention after the fireplace's invention would have had massive fireplaces. Without central heating, this was the only way to warm up a room during winters, where it could drop to several degrees below freezing. Much of the furniture or decorations in the castle actually served dual purposes. Tapestries were big, beautiful, and sometimes ornate cloth pictures which depicted famous events or people, but they were also up to trap in the heat and to stop it from escaping through the walls, like a form of insulation.
Crappy insulation, but yeah.
I mean, I guess it's better than nothing.
Mhm. It's equivalent to putting, like, a napkin on the wall.
Well, tapestries are actually kind of thick, though. Have you ever held like an Afghan?
Yeah.
They're pretty thick. Like, it wouldn't do a ton, but it'd
I'm
help
thinking, like,
some.
okay, because 'cause I'm thinking, like, dollar store tapestries.
No, I'm thinking they're spending a pretty penny to keep their
Okay.
castle warm.
Alright.
So,
That's where they're putting their money.
yep,
Got it.
yep.
Not in Windows, but okay. Yeah.
No. Well, they must have been cheaper than Windows at this point.
Yeah, expensive.
Mhm. So the enormous four-post beds that you often see in like movies and things in the grand bedchambers used
I always think of Charles Dickens.
Charles. Oh, for like
'Cause,
the
then it's not The Nightmare Before Christmas.
no, that's why
What's that name? What's
a
the one with the
Christmas
spirits?
Story. Or,
No, that's with the bunny and, where he says, "Oh, fudge."
the bunny.
Yeah, like, the little boy has to dress up as that bunny in that bunny
Oh,
outfit.
I don't think I've
That's the
seen that one.
movie. What's the one
Okay.
with Charles Dickens and the freaking
Charles
Tiny
Dickens.
Tim and the three spirits and, Tiny Tim wants that, the Cratchits and
Christmas Carol.
yes.
Yeah.
I think of the Christmas
Scrooge's
Carol and I think of the Christmas
Scrooge's
Carol
bed.
and Ebenezer Scrooge has that four-post bed with the
Mhm.
curtains over it to keep him warm.
Yep.
Mhm.
So the four-post beds often had curtains and canopies, like Kendra said in the Charles Dickens or Christmas Carol, to keep them not only for decoration and warmth, but also for privacy. So when the occupant went to bed for the night, the curtains would be closed to keep out drafts and trap in the heat. And I've also read sometimes too that since no one really bathed this time, they got very smelly. So they had vents on the top of their the top of their beds that they had to open up every once in a while.
Oh, that's so disgusting.
It is, but castles are not pretty. We'll get into that too. So now we're gonna get into the latrine, or the loo, or the toilet. So the bathroom. So the modern toilet didn't exist back in the 14th century. Instead, you either used a closed stool, which is a special seat with a bucket underneath it.
Special, all right.
Yep, a wooden seat. Or you used a privy, which is a seat with a hole in it. Basically, it's just like it's not like
Outhouse?
portable. Basically, yeah, a house kind of thing. And any waste collected when using the closed stool, like the bucket, would be collected in the bucket, then removed, washed, and replaced. And fun fact: the closed stool is where we get the term "stool" to mean feces.
Ew. It's
Yeah,
not a fun
gross.
fact.
Less fun fact.
All of
Gross
these
fact.
things that you just described are basically what
Mm,
toddlers still use every
that's
day.
true. Yeah, medieval
But they just
technology.
put, like they smack, like, a sticker of Lightning McQueen on it and then
Mhm.
go, "It's not" yeah. They go like,
Mhm.
"It's not weird."
It's not weird to poop in a bucket.
Yep,
Nope.
it's not weird to poop in a bucket or yeah, as long as, there's Elsa singing to you to let it go, like, it's not weird.
That's brilliant marketing.
Thank you.
I like it. Okay. So, if you were to use the privy or an early version of the toilet,
Mhm.
your waste ended up in one of two places. So, if the castle had a moat around it, the
Mhm.
waste probably ended up in there. If it didn't have a moat, or if the privy was located somewhere without access to a moat, the waste would end up in a cesspit at the very bottom of a castle. The cesspit was kind of like an early
Wait, what do
septic
you
tank.
mean?
What?
What do you mean at the
It-
bottom of the castle? Like, in the cellars, or is it just, like,
It's in a cesspit. It's a collection tank for poop.
a cesspit? But is it
A
in, like, the
cesspit.
basement? It's not
Yeah,
like
it's in the
okay,
basement.
thank
It's like a
God.
poop chute.
Okay, that's better. I was thinking you were gonna be like, it's like, like they're doing a tour of the castle. They're like, "Hey, MTV, this is my crib. Welcome to my castle." And they're like, "Well, this is the lobby. Here's our grand entryway. Oh, watch out for the hole right there. That's the cesspit where all the crap,
Mhm.
just
Just here's my poop closet. Don't
yep.
open that one.
Don't open that
And move
one.
along. Yeah.
So it's in the
It,
basement.
it's in the basement. Yeah.
Okay,
It's
that's
like,
better than what I was
yeah.
thinking. I was like, "What do you mean? It's at the bottom. It's at the bottom of the
Yeah.
castle.
Yeah.
It's an open hole."
I don't really know how they like built it, but you have to have access to it. We'll get to that job in a second here. There's a whole job.
Oh, I
Okay.
know this one. I watched
You know this.
the Dirty Jobs medieval
Oh, did
period.
you?
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube. I think you can watch it.
I don't think I've watched that. I need
Like the
to.
worst jobs in history or something.
Oh, this is one of them.
One of
Okay.
them was that, and the other one was a tanner.
Oh, that one's bad too.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Back to the latrine. Okay. So when it came to sanitation, things were always truly disgusting. The link between sewage and disease wasn't made until the 18th century, which is when we got like more
People are so
like
stupid.
metal and stuff used in the bathrooms and not wood. So
Oh
because
my lord.
metal doesn't have pores and wood does, and you're thinking about what does yeah. So basically every toilet seat in the medieval castle was wood. So yeah, this is yeah. Okay, so most toilets were nothing more than small rooms in which you'd find a bench with a hole in it. The users would waste would just simply fall, usually from a great height, into a cesspool, or even the moat. There would often be a huge lack of privacy too, because medieval societies didn't really value privacy as we do. So most bathrooms would have a long line of benches with nothing to separate you from your neighbor.
Like the Roman baths.
Yep, but this you're going to the bathroom.
Well, that too.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
You can look
Yep.
up ancient Roman toilets and it just looks like you're like a bench at a stadium or something. And there's just
Okay.
holes in there. And you just sit. All it's like you can just sit and then across from you is another row of it. You can all look at each other and do it.
Yeah, just have a conversation with your friend next door.
Yep, it's great. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Fun bonding
It's a good
times.
time. And I have a couple pictures, so to kind of illustrate. So often with these bathrooms where they drop the waste straight out of the castle into the boat or whatever, there would be actual like little rooms that kind of so there's like a tower on the castle, right, or the face of the castle. There would be little rooms that kind of are ejected or like offset from the castle, usually offset from each other, so the waste didn't land on top of one another. But yeah, so then it'd be staggered little outhouse looking things on the side of the castle, and that's the bathrooms. Woo! Medieval technology. Alright, so now we're getting into one of the worst jobs imaginable, the gong farmer.
Oh gosh. Something
Gong.
something tells me this isn't like a farmer that goes around harvesting gongs from the ground.
No. Nope.
I like that image better than what I think you're gonna give me.
Just growing like little
Yeah, like little
gongs.
gongs. Isn't
Yeah,
that cute?
that is cute for a
He's
magical
like this,
land.
yeah, and he takes out this, and like he's looking. He's like, "Oh, this gong is too little. It's not quite mature yet."
Hmm.
Oh, it's cute.
That is cute. This
Hmm.
is not cute. So in castles, loos bathrooms, also called gongs, were often made to overhang outside a wall, like I just mentioned.
Hmm.
So an example where you can actually still see some of these unique loos is at Privil Castle, located in Castleton in the United Kingdom. So the loos were often set high up on the wall, well above the smell, and safe from attackers who might try to use the hole to get into the castle.
Oh my
Which is
gosh.
another weird thought that I didn't really think of, but it makes sense. Could you imagine you're using the loo and someone tries to invade?
I would just go on them, I guess.
Yeah, at that point, yeah.
Mhm.
So the lords' rooms usually had their own private loos, and in Goodrich Castle, located near the village of Goodrich in the United Kingdom, there were also multi-seater public gongs where you could chat as you used them. So, though medieval people didn't know about germs, they believed bad smells caused illness. So the smells were the strongest in early castles, where the poo fell into a cesspit under the keep. The stink rose up through the rooms. So pits sometimes had to be cleaned out by an unfortunate servant called the gong farmer. Fun fact, everyone who could moved out while this was happening, while he was working. Yes. So the gong,
Why?
because it smelled so bad, it's so
Because
gross.
he's moving it around?
Mhm.
Okay, okay.
Yep. So the gong farmer would shovel the poo into baskets and wheelbarrows and take it off to bury or spread on fields as fertilizer. Gong farming would be dangerous as well as smelly. In 1325, Richard the Raker fell into a cesspit and drowned.
Oh god.
So gong farmers were quite well paid, but people didn't get too close to them.
And they probably died early.
Most likely, yeah, from
Yep.
germs and
So that's why they were like, we'll just pay them because, they're going to be dead. They can't
paid
use
them
it.
well. Yeah. All right. Now we move on to bathing,
Was that
which
the worst one? Because the gong farm. I can't.
so as far as jobs, yes, but we're gonna get into Versailles and some interesting castles you might know more about.
Well, I know a lot about Versailles because I watched
Versailles.
many documentaries on YouTube while I walk not the elliptical, but the treadmill.
Ooh, that's fun. That's a fun way to pass time.
I'm basically an old woman, but instead of having a walking group, I just watch like historical documentaries on YouTube.
That's fun. Have you heard? I think I told you about this YouTube channel, but Absolute History.
Yes.
I love that channel. They have so many cool like documentaries and they act out time periods and stuff. It's a pretty cool channel. You should
It's a good
check it
channel.
out. Yes. All right. So bathing. This may come as a shock to most people, but regular bathing as we know it today did not exist until the very late 19th century. The first main reason for not bathing was that the work was so strenuous in those days that you would sweat and get dirty basically right away. Like you bathe and then get dirty right again. Yeah. So bathing was seen as a waste of time. The second thought why bathing wasn't worth it was because of all the steps it took to actually run a bath. So there was no running water, so if you wanted a bath, and especially a hot bath, you had to collect the water, boil the water yourself over a fire, then lug it upstairs to the bathtub, fill the tub, get the temperature right, put the soap in if you were lucky to have any, strip down, get in, wash, get out, dry yourself, put your clothes back on, and then you'd have to bail out the entire bathtub by hand with a bucket.
So you do the opposite. You just like,
There's no drain, so you scoop it out.
oh, I would dump it out the window.
Yeah, that's probably what they did.
I would dump it out the window.
Yeah. So it took so long in those days, it honestly wasn't worth it.
By the
And
time you were done
you're
cleaning up your bath, you needed a bath.
yeah, exactly. So if you needed to wash yourself, you just sit in the river and rinse off, basically. Yeah.
Or you'd cover yourself with like perfume or like good smelling like scents, like oils and stuff.
Yeah, we'll kind of
Yeah.
get to that in Versailles and stuff. And certainly people didn't brush their teeth either. So wealthier people had a type of tooth powder that could be scrubbed and scraped around the gums and teeth, but it wasn't that effective.
At least they tried.
Yeah,
A
at
for
least they
effort.
tried. Yeah, there you go. So the Western European belief was that baths were unhealthy, and that did not help matters. So Henry VIII actually kept himself rather clean. He bathed often and changed his undershirts daily. So Louis XIV, on the other hand, is rumored to have bathed twice in his whole life, as did Queen Isabella of Castile. Marie Antoinette, however, is said to have bathed once a month, and in the 17th century, British King James I was said to have never bathed, causing the rooms he frequented to be filled with lice.
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. It got worse.
It gets worse.
That's my number one,
Lice?
oh god.
Yeah.
That is just horrifying.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
I'm sorry.
I feel so bad for all the school nurses.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I don't think there was ever anybody in my class or that I knew of that had
That
lice,
you knew
but
of.
that I knew of, yeah. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sure they wouldn't tell us right away, but yeah, it was always a thing that everyone talked about when we were little, but I don't think I've ever met anybody that actually had lice, which is good.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh, and also, I didn't put this um in my presentation, but King Charles II of England let his flea-bitten spaniels, his poor dogs, lie in his bedchamber, where they rendered the room, quote, very offensive, and indeed made the whole court nasty and stinking.
Didn't his head come off?
I think so.
That's probably why.
Now let us go to the kitchen. The kitchen was actually, while it was a very important part of the castle, it's also a not great job. So chefs and cooks had a lot of work to do. King Henry VIII's court could number up to 1,000 people, and they all had to be fed. What was the food in the medieval period like, you may ask? Of course, there were staples like bread and cheese, meat and fish. Any meat served in the castle was likely duck, goose, chicken, beef, or pork. And if the lord of the castle went hunting and managed to shoot down a game bird, such as a pheasant, it was eaten as well. So bread was just bread, but it was
Don't you
different.
dare say that. Bread is so much more.
Bread is beautiful. I
Bread is
love bread.
beautiful.
Love bread. So it looks a little bit different than we're used to now because medieval bakers didn't have baking tins, so their loaves of bread came shaped in circles rather than like long baguette
Isn't
or
that just what,
rectangular loaves.
during the pandemic, like when all those people started making bread, wouldn't it just look
Oh,
like
like
that?
sourdough and stuff? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
kind of like that, yeah.
Like that.
Mhm, yep. So the bread was baked in massive brick open fire ovens, and then cows and chickens provided the castle with milk, butter, cream, and eggs.
The chickens did? Provided milk?
Eggs.
Oh.
Yes, you milk a chicken. Have you ever
You
had chicken milk?
milk a chicken and then you collect the cow eggs.
Hmm.
And that's how you
Yes.
make cheeseburgers. That's how the patty shape comes from. It's just from a cow egg.
It's a cow egg, yeah.
Yep.
It's
You
very
just like
meaty.
break it open and then comes out
Perfect
the
burger.
patty. Yeah, perfect
Oh,
burger patty.
delicious cow eggs.
Mm.
I love them. Okay, so what about drinks? Well, most people back then would have drunk either beer, ale, or wine.
Not water.
Not water. No.
Not water. You do not want to go if any of you ever travel like back in time or end up being time
Mhm.
travelers, do not drink the water.
No, the water's
Death.
yeah, basically yeah. However, any water for drinking was usually drawn from wells inside the castle.
Still don't drink it.
Yeah, don't drink it. All right, and why stick to alcohol? Because don't forget that the main source of water in a castle was from the moat, if it had one, where all the human waste went into. So do not drink out of it. Yes, at least they were smart enough not to drink that water.
Directly out of the cesspool?
Yes, yep. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so most meals would have been taken out of the Great Hall in the main chamber of the castle. The royal or noble family usually sat up on a dais or a platform at the far end of that room, which gave them some privacy, but also allowed the lord or king to watch over his subjects while he ate. So food was brought in by servants, which each dish was then put down. It was customary for each servant to take a mouthful from his presented platter to show that it was not poisoned. So in royal courts, the royal food taster would do this for them. The food taster might have had a wonderful diet with all the great foods he could nibble on, but he would have lived in constant fear that someone would try to kill the king or queen.
I'll
So
take that job.
you
Like if you have to pick any job out of this like batch that we've given you,
Mhm.
the food
This
taster
is the
is
best
definitely
one.
the best one.
Yeah, yep. So, despite what you might think from movies or cartoons, in the medieval period, most people did not actually eat from plates with cutlery as we know today.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So instead, everyone was given a thick, wide slice of bread called a trencher. The trencher was your plate.
Oh, they do that at Panera.
Like a
can
bread
get
bowl?
Yeah, like the bread bowl.
Yeah.
Just got soup in it.
Yeah. You dumped all of your food on top of it and ate it off of there. And table manners should be observed, of course. In the medieval period, if you had to clear your throat for whatever reason, it was rude to spit into a cup or a bowl or even into a handkerchief. Instead, the expected thing was for you to hawk it onto the floor. So,
Ew.
not like into a hanky. No, just right in the open.
Ew.
Yep. Like sunflower seeds at a baseball game.
That's
Woo!
ew.
So most people would have eaten with their hands, but you were also usually given an eating knife and a spoon. Forks had not yet come into the table.
Toddler potties. Like How could it get worse?
Oh, you wanna see? Okay.
I'm just
I've had coffee beans. Delicious. Okay, so in July of 1535, it is said that King Henry VIII and his court of over 700 people embarked on an epic official tour. Over the next 4 months, the massive entourage would visit around 30 different royal palaces. While these stops were important for PR events for the king, royal households had another reason entirely for their constant movement.
because they smell so bad, right?
Yes, he got so
Okay, I was
filthy.
like, who does he think he is? He's like Elton John. He's just gonna go on like a tour.
Come see me perform.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. They weren't just exercising their tremendous wealth. No, no. They actually needed to escape the disgusting mess large royal parties produced. Palaces like King Henry's Hampton Court had to be constantly evacuated so they could clean out the accumulated mounds of human waste. Yes, so livestock and farmland also needed time to recover after supplying the food for so many people.
Makes
Since,
sense.
yeah. Yep, so once the tour was over, Henry and a court of over 1,000 people would keep moving for the rest of the year, traveling frequently between the king's 60 residences in a vain attempt to live in hygienic surroundings.
60
60,
houses?
yeah, in a year. They
Oh
kept moving
my
around.
goodness.
Yeah. So within just mere days of a royal party settling in one palace or another,
They
a
just
stink.
leave.
Yeah, they would just pick up and leave. Yeah. A stink would set in from poorly discarded food, animal waste, vermin from attracted to unwashed bodies and human waste. And the hallways would become so caked with grime and soot from constant fires that they were basically black. With the amount of court members constantly walking through the castles, it made it cleaning impossible and futile. Though cleanliness standards were subpar throughout the medieval Renaissance and Regency eras, royal courts were typically dirtier than the average small cabin or home.
Man, I really like the Regency era too.
I know, it's so pretty.
Hmm.
But yeah, you'd rather
It's
be.
Bridgerton. They don't have this in Bridgerton. It's
That's
so sad.
probably a good thing because you wouldn't want it anymore. So yeah, so at this point you wouldn't want to be part of the noble family because you're just constantly living in filth compared to your modest family home for the time. Yes. So a 1675 report stated this of the Louvre Palace in Paris. Quote, on the grand staircases and behind the doors and almost everywhere one sees, there is a mass excrement, the smells of 1,000 unbearable stenches caused by calls of nature, which everyone goes to do there every day.
By the stairs?
Oh, everywhere. They just found like a corner and squatted.
Can you
So-
imagine like having a meeting and then all of a sudden you just like walk past like somebody like squatting in the corner like a dog?
just today, just your boss.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, even like during balls and stuff, you just find people squatting behind a curtain. This is a thing.
This is disgusting. Somebody needs to come up with like a Bridgerton like parody and then have everything that's true, like people squatting in corners.
This-
The cesspool things, just like the stink and
Yeah.
lice and ugh.
I would watch it.
I'd watch it too.
It'd be fascinating.
Disgusting,
Disgusting,
but
but fascinating.
I would
yes.
need to watch it with a bucket.
It's like that show. What was that show that like Renters or something like that we watched on Netflix in college? That was disgusting. It was a show about like following around these landowners as they're going to like clean up these apartments after like frat boys lived in them and stuff.
Yeah, I think I left
I
the
don't-
room. I don't think I watched it that long.
Yeah, I don't think you watched
I
it,
don't
but yeah,
think
it
I
was pretty
could
gross.
stomach it or mentally,
Yeah,
you know,
it was a gross
comprehend
show.
what was happening.
Yeah, I don't recommend eating while you watch that show.
If
Definitely
you
not.
really want to clean and you're not motivated, then watch that show and it will scare you into cleaning
Fair.
for days.
Yeah, fair.
I like the one quote that you had. The smell of 1,000 unbearable stenches.
It's so poetic. I love it.
The smell of 1,000 unbearable stenches. You have to
It sounds
say
like
it
a
like
torture.
you have to say it like an old timey.
1,000 unbearable stenches. One
The
smells.
smell of 1,000 unbearable stenches.
Stenches. Oh man. Okay, so according to historian Alison Weir, author of Henry VIII, king and his court, quote, waged a constant battle against the dirt, dust, and smells that were unavoidable when so many people lived in one establishment, which was fairly unusual for the time. The king slept in a bed surrounded by furs to keep the small creatures and vermin away.
That's disgusting.
There were some attempts to keep the place clean, however. So, to keep servants and courtiers from urinating on the garden walls, Henry had large red X's painted on the problem spots. But instead of deterring men from relieving themselves, it just gave them a target.
Yep, it's like X marks the spot.
Yep, exactly. So didn't work. Guests were also asked not to dump dirty dishes in the hallways or on the king's bed. However, no one seemed to listen, so even the king had dirty dishes in his bed. Yep. So amazingly, Henry was even forced to decree that the cooks in the royal kitchen were forbidden to work naked or in garments of such vileness as they do now. This is a quote, I'm sorry. Nor lie in the nights and days in the kitchen or on the ground by the fireside. So yeah, they were working naked because it was so hot and gross in there. So kitchens were not the best place to work either. So, so to try to solve the problem, clerks of the kitchen were instructed to purchase, quote, honest and wholesome garments for the staff. And clerks of the kitchen were basically like, they basically helped the head cooks. They did whatever they needed to
Like
get
a
everything
sous
ready.
chef?
Kind of,
Second in
yeah.
command?
It's not quite the sous chef because I don't think they cooked much, but they basically did anything that the cook needed him to do. So it's
Like
like
a
their right hand man kind
hostess
of.
or something? I don't know.
Not quite that. Maybe like a just responsible for the daily operation and maintenance of a restaurant kitchen or the castle
Who
kitchen.
was?
The clerk of the kitchen.
Oh, the clerk of the kitchen. Okay.
Yes. Alrighty. So, while King Henry VIII had a relatively sophisticated laboratory system for himself, other waste management systems intended to be hygienic at the time seem very disgusting today. So, servants were encouraged to pee in vats so that their urine could be used for cleaning.
Oh, that's right. They used. Yeah.
Uh,
Didn't Henry VIII have like an official butt wiper too?
yeah, I think a lot of kings did.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, that was like the highest
Honor.
job
It's
in
like
the
an
land.
honor.
It is, yeah.
And then who was it? Is it Louis the 14th, 15th? I can't remember. Whatever one built Versailles, he
Hmm.
started like it was an honor to dress him or like watch him get up in the morning and like
Yeah.
go to sleep. It was
Yep.
just like, oh, and he's gonna put his feet out of the bed onto the floor.
Oh my
And there
goodness.
he goes, and like
Oh,
dress him up like
he waddles away.
yeah,
Oh, watch him.
he really like pulled the wool over everyone's eyes like.
Yeah. Yep. So, as actual cleanliness was often unachievable, the royal court resorted to masking the offensive odors. So, sweet smelling plants covered the palace floors, and ones that could afford them pressed sachets of scent to their noses. So, basically, walked around with like little scents in bags to make it smell better. Yeah. So once Henry and his court moved into the next royal residence, the scrubbing and airing out of the palace began. So the waste from the king's non-flushing lavatories was then cleaned out by the king's gong scorers, or
Scourge.
scours. Yes, or the gong farmers. Yep. So, in an interview with The Independent, Simon Thurley, curator of historic royal palaces, said, quote, after the court had been there for 4 weeks, the bricks chambers would fill head high. So
The bricks
cesspit,
chambers. Oh
the cesspit,
gosh, I was
4
hoping it was
weeks.
gonna be innocent. Like they made like there were like bricks, and they made bricks while they were there. It's like a fun activity to do. Was to get like all together to make bricks.
No, no,
Not
this is how
that
tall
kind of bricks.
yeah, this is how much waste there was. But there's also like 1,000 people, so I mean,
Oh my
it's,
gosh.
yeah. So yeah, not a fun job. The Sun King himself, King Louis XIV, that chose to no longer travel from court to court, his decision would lead to a particularly putrid living situation. In 1682, in an effort to seal his authority, King Louis XIV moved his court permanently to the gilded mega palace of Versailles. Beautiful palace. At times, over 10,000 royals, aristocrats, government officials, servants, and military officers lived at Versailles and its surrounding lodgings. Despite its reputation for magnificence, life at Versailles for both royals and servants was no cleaner than the slum-like conditions in many European cities at the time. So not good. Women pulled up their skirts up to pee where they stood.
That's nice.
Yep. While some men urinated off the balustrade in the middle of the royal chapel. Fun fact, Marie Antoinette was once hit by human waste being thrown out the window as she walked through an interior courtyard.
Yeah, that's really funny.
That was funny, yeah. Fun fact. Woo-hoo. Okay. Can you imagine just a lovely stroll? Just open up a window. It's like,
Like,
oh,
it's such nice weather out. Oh, there's a breeze to clear the stench of
mhm.
everyone's armpits, and then hit.
So you said a bit of rain. Oh. Alright, so the heavily trafficked latrines often leaked into the bedrooms below them,
Oh my gosh.
while blockages and corrosion in the palace's iron and lead pipes were also known to occasionally, quote, poison everything in Marie Antoinette's kitchen.
I wonder why. Lead pipes.
Mm,
They don't
yes.
put two and two together for a while.
Not for a long time, no. So, this unsanitary way of living no doubt led to countless deaths throughout the royal European households. It was not until the 19th century that standards of cleanliness and technological developments improved life for many people, including the members of royal courts. Today, many European royals still move from residence to residence, but for fun, not to run from their filth.
Or maybe they are.
Maybe they are, just a little bit.
Yep, the royal family doesn't have nothing on me.
So there it is. Do you still want to live in a castle?
I didn't before.
I know.
And it's even worse now. This is a good Thanksgiving episode because I am
Oh, I'm so
so
sorry.
thankful to be in the 21st century.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Like,
I'm
even
so thankful.
just our knowledge of germs in general, I'm sure there's a lot more to learn, but not having porous surfaces on your latrine and just sewage management, waste management in our modern society is a beautiful thing.
I'm just so thankful that I'm not squatting in the corner to go to the bathroom.
That's the thing is, I don't remember what I was watching. I think it was something from Absolute History, but that was what really surprised me was that people just went whenever. They just
Stood up and just was like, I'm just
Yep,
going
they'd
now.
be dancing and literally just peeing, urinating. They didn't care. It was just a thing. Yeah.
I'm traumatized.
I am very sorry. Alright, Wanderers, thank you so much for listening to another Foolish Wanderers podcast. We hope you enjoyed and didn't lose your appetite for Thanksgiving dinner if you celebrate Thanksgiving. If you have any suggestions for any future episodes, please feel free to email us at fwplisteners@gmail.com.
And as always, new episodes of the FWP are released weekly from wherever you get your podcast from, including this place that you're listening to right now. And if you'd like, we would really appreciate it if you'd consider leaving us a 5-star review. It helps us get into the algorithms and helps grow our show.
Yeah. Alright, thank you so much, Wanderers. We'll see you guys next time.